Good morning to you. Welcome to your bite-sized word of encouragement. I'm doing a ladies' meeting very soon, coming up soon on the 2nd of April. And I felt the Lord say to me, the theme is to be significant. And I'm looking at my book, Your Now Season, and I believe the reason that God says significant is not so much about how we look at ourselves and we have a significant purpose. Yes, it is all about that. We have to realize that we are significant in the hand of God. But the season around us and what is happening, and that this is actually what the word significant means. And I'm going to look at, there's a chapter in this book called A Significant Season. And remember, I wrote this book in 2020. The meaning of the word significance is the quality of being worthy of attention, importance, and notable. So what I'm believing now is, and even when I wrote this book, is that the church finds itself in a very significant season where we know that since the beginning of time there have been wars and rumors of wars, there have been pandemics before, there have been natural disasters ongoing. And so where we find ourselves in today is nothing new. But I feel in God's eyes, it is a very significant season because He wants to use the opportunities of things that are happening in the world to bring in an end time harvest. And so if we see that God is not causing all of these things in the world or even allowing all of these things to get people's attention, but He's using His people in a time of crisis to get the attention of somebody else. And so if you can see that this season is very significant for the church, that it's not a time for the church to hide away, but it's a time for the church to be the significant place and people that God has called us to be. So I looked at some of these things here, and we're going to look at a man in the Bible who found himself in a very significant time. A crisis is a turning point. So when there's a crisis happening around us, it's a time where we stop and we make a decision. Are we going to fall headlong into this crisis and just be overwhelmed by it? Or are we going to stop and see what is God doing and hear what is God saying, so that we cause the crisis to be turned around so that God can be seen instead of what the enemy's doing. So many people, I'll just read you a few things here. So many people were caught saying, I never saw this coming. I had plans for 2020, but so did God. And I want to bring it into this year, where we are now. God always has a better plan. I believe that He uses every opportunity to establish us and to increase us. He loves us too much to leave us the way we are, even in a challenging time. He's calling out the strength He sees in us, because in Jesus we are made strong. We don't feel strong in ourselves because we aren't. We are His sons and daughters, and all of creation is waiting expectantly for us to acknowledge that and walk in it. This season is calling us to be the big thinkers, to be willing to stretch our spiritual sight and to see beyond the obvious. And I'm just going to read something, and then we're going to look at Mark chapter 5. People of courage have the unusual ability to think ahead, to see themselves in the new season, even while they are here in the now. They hear and see crazy things, but do them anyway, because they have chosen, just like Jairus, to expect the miraculous interventions of God. And you know, I was thinking this morning, we are going on a ministry trip. By the time you watch this, I will probably be home or on my way home. But we're going on a ministry trip to a different part of the country. And so this morning when the weather report came on, they gave us for the next few days. And I found myself not looking at Cape Town, where we live, but looking at the place we're going to see what the weather's going to be like when we are there. And I realized to myself that I'm already thinking ahead. I'm already thinking, what will I be wearing in a few days' time? Will I need a jacket? And this is how we need to be in this season, that we see what's going on around us, but where is God taking us to? Because God is always pointing us to in a vision. He's giving us a vision, and He's pointing us to that. And we need to see ourselves there already, even though we're here in the now, because God gives us faith for what He shows us. And so we are dressed for where He's taking us. We are equipped. We are covered. We're anointed for where He's taking us. So we find a man in Mark chapter 5, and his name is Jairus. And he's the man who, let's just find him in Mark chapter 5. It is from verse 22. He's one of the rulers of the synagogue. His name is Jairus. He saw Jesus, and he came and he fell at his feet, and he begged him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, that she may be healed, and she will live." And Jesus went with her. But then they were interrupted by the woman with the issue of blood, who got healed on the road. And by this time the people had come from the house of Jairus to say to him, "Your little daughter has died. Give up. It's finished. You may as well not bother the teacher anymore. He doesn't have to come with you. Just come back. Let's mourn her death and then get on with our own lives." But Jesus heard the same words that Jairus said. And he said, "Do not fear, only believe." And Jairus was given a choice there. And I feel this is the crisis place that Jairus was. He could hear what Jesus was saying. He knew his answer was Jesus, or he wouldn't have gone to him. But now remember, his daughter hadn't died when he first went to him. He said, "My daughter is at the point of death." He could listen to what Jesus said, "Don't fear, only believe." Or he could listen to the people he knew. Remember, these are people who knew what was going on back at home. They had firsthand an encounter. They saw his daughter was dead. They had the facts that they were bringing to Jairus. So Jairus, in a time of crisis, could go this way or that way. But he chose to believe what Jesus said. "Oh, do not fear, only believe." And Jesus went back to the house with him, and his daughter was raised from the dead. You know the story if you've read it in Mark chapter 5. Now, in a time of crisis in your life, or in a time of crisis in the world, are we going to just fall into that discouraged, depressed, hopeless place with everybody else and say, "Oh, well, it's going to happen anyway. Things are just going to get worse. God has forgotten about me. I just feel sorry for myself"? Or are we going to listen to what the Spirit of God is saying to us at this time, standing in this place of choice? Don't fear, only believe. And the reason is, when we fear, we fall into the other side. But when we believe, we give God credit for what He has done before and for who He is. And when we believe, we lean on the other side and we find our strength in Him. And that's when we realize, but the Spirit of God is still here with me. Jesus paid a price for me to live a life of victory. And so no matter what I hear around me, I refuse to go down that road. I'm going to go down this road, the kingdom road. And the kingdom road is where we find the grace, the power, the anointing, the peace of God, which is what we all need in these days, the strength that comes, the empowerment to stand, to resist the lies of the enemy. And some of you watching today are needing to do some resistance training. And your resistance training is to make a choice today to say, "I'm not going to fear, I will believe." Because there's so many scriptures in the Bible today that speak into every situation we can think of. And so if we believe that this is a significant time for us as believers to stand up and be counted, that we can be, people are going to take note of us because we have peace, because we believe. We're not running with the pack who have fear. And so be encouraged with this today, that Jesus is looking at you and He's saying, "I know, I see everything you're going through. I hear the same report coming from the camp of the enemy. You're surrounded by the voices in the valley right now." And He's saying, "Come and sit with me. Don't fear, only believe, because I am with you." So be encouraged with that today.